Your brain is deleting most of what you study, not because you're lazy, not because you're dumb, because your brain has one brutal rule. If something doesn't look important, it doesn't save it. Think of your brain like a security guard at the door of your memory. Every sound, image, sentence, notification, and thought is trying to get inside. Your brain can't keep all of it, so it asks one question: is this worth wiring into the system? Most of the time, the answer is no. That's why you can read the same page 5 times and still remember nothing. That's why cramming feels productive at midnight, then vanishes during the test. That's why someone can practice a skill for 1 hour and improve, while another person spends 5 hours and barely moves. The difference isn't effort, it's the signal you send to your brain. Learning happens when your brain physically changes. Tiny connections between brain cells become stronger when they're used again and again. That's called neuroplasticity. But your brain won't spend energy building a new connection unless you convince it that the connection matters. So the real question is not, how do I study more? The better question is, how do I make my brain hit save? The first switch is attention. Your brain learns what you pointed at. If your phone is beside you, part of your brain is not studying. It's waiting. Waiting for the buzz, waiting for the message, waiting for the next tiny reward. And every time you switch from your notes to your phone, your brain pays a tax. Attention is not unlimited. It's a spotlight. If you shine it everywhere, nothing gets bright enough to stick. So before you learn anything, make the room boring. Phone away. One tab open, one task. 20 minutes of real focus beats 2 hours of fake studying. The second switch is alertness. Your brain saves better when it's awake enough to care. That doesn't mean panic. Too much stress can hurt memory. But a little activation tells your brain, pay attention, something is happening. That's why a short walk before studying can help. That's why a few minutes of movement can sharpen focus. That's why studying right after a giant meal feels like trying to think through fog. You don't need a complicated routine. Move your body for 5 minutes. Climb stairs. Do jumping jacks. Walk fast around the block. Wake the system before you ask it to learn. The third switch is sleep. This is the one most people sacrifice first, which is ridiculous because sleep is when your brain files the memory. During the day, your hippocampus acts like a temporary notebook. It catches new facts, names, ideas, and skills. But temporary is not permanent. Sleep is when the brain moves those notes into long-term storage. So when you pull an all-nighter, you're not being disciplined. You're leaving the files on the desk and hoping they magically archive themselves. They usually don't. If the information matters, sleep is part of the study session, not a reward after it. The fourth switch is repetition. Your brain doesn't build a highway for a road you walked once. It waits. If the same idea keeps showing up, the brain starts thinking, fine, this one matters. That's why spaced repetition works better than cramming. Not 5 hours in one desperate night, 30 minutes today, 30 tomorrow, again in 3 days, again next week. Every return is a vote. You're telling your brain, keep this, I'm going to need it. The fifth switch is breaks. Right after learning, a new memory is fragile. Think wet cement. If you immediately flood your brain with a new topic, scrolling, messages, or another similar lesson, you can interfere with what you just built. That quiet space after learning matters. 10 minutes, no phone, no new lesson, no frantic multitasking. Just let the brain replay. It feels like nothing is happening. That's the trick. Some of the most important learning happens when you stop forcing it. The sixth switch is mistakes. This is the one people hate. A mistake feels like proof that you're failing. But to the brain, a mistake is a flare. It says, update needed. That uncomfortable feeling after getting something wrong is not useless. It pulls attention toward the gap between what you thought would happen and what actually happened. If you quit there, your brain learns avoidance. If you correct it there, your brain learns the skill. So don't wait until you feel ready to test yourself. Quiz yourself early. Try the problem before checking the answer. Practice the hard version before it feels comfortable. The mistake is not the enemy. The mistake is the doorway. So the next time you sit down to learn, don't just study harder. Press the save button. Focus on one thing. Wake your brain up. Sleep after learning. Repeat across days. Take a real break. Use mistakes before they scare you away. Your brain is not trying to betray you. It's trying to protect space. Show it what matters, and it will build the wiring. Ignore the rules, and it deletes the lesson, not because you didn't work, because you never told your brain to save.